pretty too. What'd you do? I see you. I didn't do that. For the most part, I was a good two shooter. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin the meeting in 1 minute. I am. Well, good evening. Today is Tuesday, December 2022, and the time is 6 p.m. The regular meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the City as Housing Assets successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call the roll?
Councilmember Gomez.
Good evening.
Councilmember Harriman.
Here.
Councilmember Irving.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra.
Here.
Mayor Jones.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, we're now going to move on to our invocation led by Pastor DeAndre McBride of Sunrise Church. That's going to be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Police Captain John Wickham. Everyone, please rise if you're able.
All right. Check. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for your divine grace, mercy, peace, wisdom, Lord, and provision over the city of Victorville, Heavenly Father. Lord, we thank you that you're watching over our city council, Lord, police chief, fire chief, Lord God, and all the city employees, Heavenly Father. Lord, we thank you for this holiday season. Bless those that are recovering, Lord God, from any sicknesses and illness. Those that have lost loved ones, comfort them, Heavenly Father. We pray that your peace, guidance, and wisdom be upon our city. In your precious Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Please face the flag and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor, thank you very much. Thank you, Captain Wickham. All right, we're now going to move on to a special presentation. And this evening, this is the City of Victorville Industrial Wastewater Treatment Plant Annual Report summary for 2021-2022. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. You probably know, but for the benefit of the audience that may not know, the City of Victorville operates a wastewater treatment plant of its own, separate and distinct from the wastewater treatment plant that is served regionally by the Victor Valley Wastewater Reclamation Authority. And the wastewater treatment plant that we own and effectively operate through a third-party contract was built about 12 years ago out at SCLA, principally intended to serve industrial users at SCLA, but also was designed and such to be able to treat domestic flows from inside the city. So with that, we wanted to try to make an effort to have that operation much more front and center with the council. We thought it'd be a good idea at this point in time, especially given the year that we've had, not only operationally, but we've made some pretty substantial investments in the capital improvements out at that facility to keep it running and give it new life. So with all of the expenditures that you've seen this year, we're largely complete with the major improvements and thought it'd be a good opportunity to share with you all that we've accomplished this year operating. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to your city engineer, who will introduce the team from Woodard Curran, who is the wastewater treatment plant operator.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to introduce to you Chris McMahon. He's an area manager for the Pacific Coast area with Woodard and Curran, and he will be giving a presentation on our sewer treatment plant.
Thank you. And council members, you should all have a hard copy of the presentation that's about to be given to us. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. There it is. So, my name is Chris McMahon. I'm the area manager that oversees the area that Victorville falls in. I'm going to just give a quick summary over the fiscal year 21-22.
Can I have you adjust the mic and speak into it, please?
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry.
Thank you.
Is that better? Okay, thank you. So, key highlights for the year. We had another year with no injuries. We had no permit exceedances at the facility. We are developing a great staff here in the city of Victorville. And we completed a membrane retrofit project that we're gonna kind of run through here in this presentation. So safety is our top priority. In Victorville, we've had no injuries since the facility was commissioned. So we have made it about 11 and a half years without an injury. We have 4 key to our success. We incentivize our employees through recognition programs, which is what the Sparks program is. We conduct daily safety meetings to make sure that safety is a priority among our staff members. We provide monthly safety training to our employees, and then we do instructor-led training through Woodard and Curran's in-house instructors. So we also share all the experiences that we encounter across the company to make sure that we don't run into the same safety issue at different facilities. Compliance. Compliance-wise, can't get the next slide to come there.
There we go.
Compliance-wise, the facility was in compliance, meeting all regulatory goals for the year. We practice, Woodard and Curran, we practice many best practices to make sure that we maintain compliance at the facilities. We make sure that we're leading data-driven, analytic-driven operational strategies that can be monitored and adjusted based upon the conditions that we see. We, at the facility, produce a very high-quality effluent that is used for reuse at the High Desert Power Project. About 53% of the total water is used for reuse at the facility. So we have a really high standard of treatment that we must meet. We make sure that we are prepared for any typical or potential compliance issues by maintaining monitoring programs that are going to identify any inconsistencies in the industrial flow the facility receives, that we're preparing for any equipment issues the facility may encounter to make sure that we have the redundancy in place to manage any unexpected issues. We're also monitoring for any unknown discharges or accidental discharges into the system to make sure that we don't have anything coming into the system and affecting the plant that shouldn't be there. Personnel-wise, the facility has 5 staff members that are all local staff members. They're all certified wastewater operators here in the state of California. Each of them has at least a grade 3 certification in the state, and we're continually working with the employees to increase their certification levels, bring them to external training sessions. We provide internal training sessions with our technical experts to broaden their level of experience, to make sure that we're able to meet the needs that the plant runs into on the day-to-day. From the corporate side, we've had over 30 different support personnel that have provided varying degrees of support to the project through the year. We had some construction projects here this year where we had construction managers on site to make sure that they were managing the general day-to-day construction activities while the plant staff was able to manage the day-to-day operations and make sure that we were meeting our goals. We have technical experts that help us and assist with various issues that we encounter through the industrial users or through the equipment at the facility. We provide some design services as needed to the city. We have safety professionals that visit and provide on-site training. In general, we're in and out of here all the time. So we have people coming in from all over the country to help support Victorville and make sure that we're achieving the level of service that the city of Victorville has come to expect from us. Maintenance-wise, we have a very comprehensive maintenance program that the facility maintains. The program is built upon inspections and preventative maintenance. It's about identifying the issues so that we can fix them before the emergencies occur. That it's a lot more cost efficient, a lot more manpower effective for us to address the issues on a planned preventative maintenance schedule rather than have to deal with the issues when they occur in the middle of the night or when equipment fails resulting in downtime at the facility. We want to make sure that the facility is in compliance 24 hours a day, that we're treating the water 24 hours a day, that we're providing the reliable service that the industries expect and that the city expects from us. And towards that goal, we conduct about 1,200 total inspections, preventative maintenance activities, and corrective repairs during the year to keep the plant up and running throughout anything that it encountered. The big issue for the year, big project that was undertaken was the membrane replacement project. So the membranes are a permeable strand-like material that functions kind of as a straw filter. That there's a back pressure put on it and it sucks the water out the straws. You can see the membranes here. The idea is that they will separate the water, the clean treated water, from any pollutants, toxins, the microbiology that's used to help treat the water, and it'll suck out that clean treated product that we want to make sure that we can maintain at the facility. The membranes were reaching the end of their lifespan, and they were identified as having treatment issues. We were starting to run into increased maintenance, and it was elected that we would go through and start replacing the equipment. That project was completed this past summer. So in the project, we needed to drain the tanks. So these tanks normally have between 15 and 20 feet of water in them. So we drained the tanks completely. We cleaned the tanks. We removed all the previous equipment from the tanks. And then we inspected the tanks to make sure that there was no concrete damage, no coating damage, that there was no unknown issues that were going to prevent us from being able to complete the project on a timely manner. So once the equipment arrived on site, it had to be stored in a very tight temperature range. The equipment has to be kept hydrated before it can be installed to make sure that the membranes maintain their integrity. So they were stored in the shop on the treatment facility. They were unwrapped once the construction crew arrived. They inspected and then lifted into the system, and they were dropped into the bottom of the tanks and attached. All of the piping, pumps, electronics, all of that equipment was installed and reattached after the fact. Everything with the project went extremely well. We ran into no construction delays. Everything was completed on time. During the commissioning phase of the project, essentially they turned them on, put them into full service, and they've been in full service since then. So the facility is back to full capacity. We're able to deal with any of the fluctuations that come from the flow. We're able to take the membranes out of service to clean. They're able to function in automatic function. We've continued through the process to produce great effluent, which is the water that leaves the facility, but now we're able to provide it in a more reliable, more predictable fashion. So all in all, the project went extremely well. Financially for the year, the base operating budget, we were about 3.4% under the budget for the year, about $53,000 in total. So we did have quite a few more repair and replacement projects than we had expected throughout the year. So we ended up exceeding the fund amount for the year. We carried over $171,000 from previous years, and we ended up exceeding the total balance of the account by about $170,000. But we completed many more projects than we had expected to encounter during the year. It's kind of the nature of the business sometimes, is that we run into things we can't plan and expect. In summary, I'd like to thank Victorville for the partnership that they've allowed Woodard and Curran to develop here. We appreciate what we get to do here, and we love the community. We've been here for a really long time, and we appreciate the duration of what we're going to do.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. We appreciate the wonderful presentation. It was a nice high-level overview for us. Council members, this is just a presentation, but to the extent that anyone has a couple general questions or comments, I'll pass it on to you now. So we'll start with Member Gomez.
I'm going to reserve that. You asked out of the blue, and I wasn't expecting you to ask me.
Sure, Mr. Harriman.
What is the lifespan of the membranes? What is the cycle for replacement, or do you just wait until they deteriorate to a certain degree and then replace?
We monitor their treatment efficiency, how often they clean, and how often they need to be cleaned, and how well they return to their original capacity after each cleaning cycle. So we currently have 2 of the membranes in service this summer. The other 2 were being monitored by the contractor to ensure that they're ready for replacement before their time comes. But at this point, all of the membranes are working well.
So it's on an automatic cleaning system.
Yes.
Does that happen daily, or is it? What's the cycle for that?
It happens when they reach a pressure differential in the system. They automatically enter into a cleaning cycle. I think they clean about once a day on normal use, but sometimes it's more or less depending on how.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I do have.
Go ahead, Member Gomez. I was going to go ahead and call on Member Irving and give you a little more time, but if you're ready, please go ahead.
Yes, in terms of the SCADA programming, I was interested in finding out how up to date are we with the technology?
In 2022, we updated a significant portion of the SCADA program. So we installed new security software, new firewalls, updated some of the server equipment. At this point, I would say that we're very well up to date when it comes to the SCADA.
And with the IWWTP, maybe I'm confusing it, but I recall a couple of times ago an agenda item that addressed certain erosion on the externalities of the infrastructure. That could have been the water district, which I could be allotting to the IWWTP. But I recognized there was some kind of erosion, and we were doing some kind of hiring externally with contracts. Is that pertinent to this one?
We don't have any erosion issues.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Irving.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, I just want to say I had an opportunity when I first came on board to visit this plant or this operation. It's quite sophisticated. So to hear you give an overview of all these positives, you only have good news, no injuries. You met all of your compliance goals. And I think I heard correctly that for the project, you were successful in that you were under budget and on time. So congratulations and kudos to you and your team.
Thank you. We appreciate the good news.
Thank you. And so I certainly echo those sentiments. Thank you again, Mr. McMahon, for coming to spend some time with us and sharing some good news with us. We appreciate it.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and your staff for a safety record for so long. Congratulations also for keeping the plant up and running without any also other issues. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Mayor Protem, my apologies. All right. We're now going to move on to our next item, and that's for the city clerk to present the agenda and any revisions thereto.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a revision to agenda item number 11. It's a revision to attachment B to the AB 1600 report for fiscal year 2021-2022. Section 4, the report public improvement fiscal year 2021-2022 public improvement expenditure table. Total project funding column for the Green Tree extension should read $46,825,708. The percent impact fee funding column for the Green Tree extension should be 41%. And total project fund column for all projects should be $121,168,779. Additionally, we have revisions to agenda item number 19 with the addition of attachment B, which is letter of interest and resumes received from Kimberly Messon and Paul Marsh for consideration to Planning Commission vacancies. And for agenda item number 16 this evening, that item is being pulled. That concludes the revisions to the agenda.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, and then the order of business this evening will be modified slightly as follows. We're going to take up item Number 18, immediately following the public comment period. With that said, we're going to move on to our conflict of interest declarations. Do any council members have conflicts of interest to declare?
No, ma'am.
Seeing, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to the introduction to public comments. Madam Mayor, before I do that, do we have requests to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, well, everyone, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Victorville City Council. Your City Council is interested in your ideas and opinions and furthermore endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with Council's established policies and procedures and Government Code Section 54957.9. Individuals may speak on agenda items or on issues not posted on the agenda during the public comments section, providing those issues are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Individual speakers may address the council once per public comment period and once per each public hearing item for up to 3 minutes. Those who desire to comment on a public hearing item may wish to reserve their remarks until that particular public hearing item has been opened. All testimony is to be directed solely to the council. Although open meeting laws do not permit council members to engage in dialogue with any speaker during the public comment periods, please know your comments and questions may be taken into consideration by council members when discussing that particular agenda item. The presiding officer may briefly respond or have staff respond to statements or questions, or may request that the staff report back to the council at a subsequent meeting. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Individual council members who speak as a member of the public do so without the semblance or presumption of authority derived from his or her public office and are subject to the same meeting rules of conduct and decorum as other public participants. Once comments are invited, the speaker will be called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. The speaker will state the item number that will be addressed or that the subject is a non-agendized matter. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. Madam Clerk.
Our first speaker is Lydia Marsala on a non-agendized item.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Marsala. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. 2 weeks ago, I was here to request to put in the agenda for an emergency warming shelter. Unfortunately, I noticed that no one even commented about it at the end of the meeting to put it on. Since 2 weeks, people had died, which are homeless. People have been released from the hospital to the streets. People have nowhere to go. I'd like to ask for the city of Victorville to please put this urgent matter for everybody's attention. The city of Victorville has plenty owned buildings empty that we can open this warming shelter for those in need. The city of Victorville has plenty of money to pay for the staff, the security, and our community will do the rest. We're begging you. How many more people will die this winter? It's a state of emergency. Something needs to be done. The rest of my comments, I'm going to take this time for everybody to close their eyes because the following names are names from the people that share our shelter and have passed away. And the last one will be Nick O. that passed away alone last week in back of one of our shelters, not even a block away. And I did the video for everybody to show because they did not want anybody to find out. Freddie, Terry, Steve, Ricardo, Daniel, Stephen Rogers, Frankie, Clark, Lyle, Teresa, Pamela, Surgeon, Jason, Grant, and Nikki O. We owe it to you. The city of Victorville needs to do this. We are in an emergency. It's winter. I hope nobody has a family member that is going through that.
Our time is up.
Thank you, Ms. Marsala. Madam Clerk?
Our next speaker is Tim Muniz on a non-agendized item.
Good evening and welcome, sir.
How you guys doing? I was at the shelter that's located in Victorville. I was denied entry earlier this year, September 20th. I was told a few days before that they had bedding. I could come in for interview. For reasons unknown, the head running manager lady named Shannon had said that that they had no beds available and I could not come in. I wear a tattoo on my arm that says VVCWS. The top of the heart is a V. It's Victor Valley Community Warming Shelter. 2020 with a cup of soup. I wear that because of the fact that when I had no place to go, the warming shelter a couple of years ago had a place for me. Took me in for who I was, not what I was. So I'm just asking for the fact on behalf of the city as well that we do need a warming shelter. I have a place now, but that's not the point. The point is there's many, many more out there that are suffering in the cold. They need a place for the night at least to keep warm. Whatever their business they conduct during the days, you know, that they have a place, a warm place to sleep. Because it is really, really freezing cold out there. And this being a high desert, it's even colder than it would be down in the valleys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your coming to speak with us this evening. Madam Clerk?
Our next speaker is Janet Oliver on a non-agendized item.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. Oliver.
Hi, good evening. Happy holidays. I'm here also on the warming shelter. I would like to see the most vulnerable of our citizens to have a place to go at night when it's freezing. We said a prayer to God in the beginning of this meeting. What do you think that God would think of us letting people be on the streets in the cold? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Madam Clerk?
Our next speaker is Matthew on a non-agendized item.
Good evening, Matthew, and welcome. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you again as well, Mayor. Good evening. Merry Christmas. Grateful to see you. I didn't get a chance to see you when I was here about a month ago. Captain John Wickham, again, thank you for your service. I think the lieutenant last time. But City Council, I'm super grateful to be before you right now. Our chief, thank you for keeping us safe again. Again, you know, I'm here also about the homeless situation. And Mr. Metzger, I want to extend really an offer of having about 200 to 400 volunteers here who will waive liability, who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, who serve a master who touched lepers, had no problem healing people who are blind, getting his hands dirty. We don't have a problem getting our hands dirty either. You know, we believe, those of us in the City of Angels International Christian Church, we're in the high desert sector up here. We just planted a church up here about a year ago. And of those 1,000 people in the City of Angels International Christian Church, all of us are willing to serve in any way in any city in Southern California. And I can have them here within a couple of days if that's what you needed. I'd love to collaborate with you to work out how we can help the homeless here in the city. I know that many homeless people are being shipped here from other cities because it's easy to dump them in the desert, sadly. But that doesn't mean we can't still serve them and help them in a great way. You know, we believe that Jesus Christ, he died for us, and we're convinced of this. And he died for us so that we would no longer live for ourselves, but we'd live for him. And so all of us, every human being should be living for him. Whether we believe that or not, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're going to end up being accountable for that. And so we don't want to just come and extend and tell you about a problem that you already know about, but we're here to extend a solution. There's no point in us coming in and telling you about a problem you already know about if we can't help you. And that's what we're really here to do. We don't want to just lay it at your feet and say, figure it out, city council. Well, that'd be terrible, Bob. I mean, wouldn't you hate that? Just, hey, here's a problem. Go figure it out, buddy. Right? That's not where we're at. And we're a city, we're a community. We've got to pull together. We're willing to. The City of Angels International Christian Church, which I represent, I'm an evangelist of, is willing to send 200 to 400 people up here, and I'm under promising so that I can over deliver. I just want to be clear about that as well. So, Mr. Metzger, I've reached out to you in your office several times. You guys are super kind on the phone. I appreciate that. You don't feel like I'm harassing you at all. But I want you to know that I am here to work with you. I'd be happy to in any way. These fine gentlemen behind me just represent people who are willing to do whatever it takes to serve the community we live in. And we're just 3 of 30 here in the city, but like I said, we have access to many more people and a lot of manpower. Again, Merry Christmas. Super grateful to be before you all. In any way we can help and serve, please let us know. Thank you.
Matthew, we appreciate you. You're a bit contagious with your wonderful attitude. We appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. I know you get, like I said, a lot of complaints.
Yes, sir.
And I would hate to just come up here and complain. But
Thank you,
again,
sir.
be part of the solution. Thank you again,
We
Mayor.
appreciate you.
Have a great night.
Yes, sir. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Miller Marks Davidson on a non-agendized item.
Welcome. And I'm sorry, the last name again?
Davidson.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Davidson. So glad to have you with us, sir.
Yes, Madam Mayor. God bless everybody, and we keep you guys in prayer. I know it's a job, and we thank you for your guys' services, and we're here too for the homeless people. You know, I'm a citizen of Victorville. You know, I was here before, and we do have to have something about this because there's a lot of people suffering out there. Me and my wife were driving by, and we see people on the street, on the gas stations, freezing, shaking. They come. We live right on the corner of Mariposa and Tamarack, and they cut through our yard and screaming, doing, and shivering, and we just need all of you guys' help that we could come all together and try to get this problem solved because it is a situation. And we just can't elect it because they're human beings. You know, they're like us. What happens if we was on the street? I mean, we want help. So please give it more your attention, Mr. Missler. And we just thank you put in more time into this because I love animals. I'm an animal lover, and I care for every animal. But these are human beings. I mean, we want to help. And especially right now for the holidays, the Christmas holidays, New Year's, it's all going to be cold. Plus, we give out gloves, masks, hats to keep them warm much as we can. But we still need more help. You know, we're hoping that the San Bernardino Fairgrounds could at least open, at least keep them in there because it goes down to like I think what was it last night, like 40 degrees or 30. Oh, was it?
Thank
There
you.
you go. And it's
Just
cold.
the speaker at the podium should be speaking. Thank you.
But it's very cold. So please give it your attention, folks, please. And we thank you for your time, for listening. And I just hope we could do something before the Christmas holidays right away. Thank you.
Thank you,
Did
Mr.
you
Davidson.
want to say something?
Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Jake Henry on agenda items 18 and 19.
Good evening, Mr. Henry. Welcome to our meeting.
Good evening. All right, well, my name is Jake Henry, and I'm here today because our city is facing many crises and a seemingly divided government, and whoever is appointed mayor tonight has a tough job ahead of them to make sure we come together and address issues that actually matter. I love Victorville, but I am concerned because about the direction we're heading in. Our city looks a lot more bleak than it was when I was a kid. A little bit about me. I was raised by my grandmother, and we, along with my 7 other siblings and cousins, we moved to a 4-bedroom house here in Victorville. It was a lot better than the 2-bedroom apartment we all cramped together in. But despite my adversities, I graduated from university prep at 16, skipped the 11th grade, sold everything I owned to pay for my own college education. Unfortunately, I had to drop out, but I got a second chance, and that was a full ride scholarship to UC San Diego. After graduating in 2019, I went to work for President Obama. I did digital organizing, and I decided to move back home this year. Wanted to run for office, didn't really work out, and now I'm working and doing web developing. So I came back because I love my community, but I'm very concerned about where it's headed. So last week we talked about low voter turnout. Why is voter turnout so low? Because I don't think we're giving people a reason to actually show up and vote. A lot of people came up, they voiced concerns about how we need to address homelessness. Why aren't we taking action on that? As a candidate, I wanted to propose run on issues like lowering healthcare, using local ordinance power, things like that, using our $333 million budget to actually make a difference on issues that will actually touch people's lives. I think doing that will actually give people a reason to vote and show and participate in our political process, and actually show people that we're on the side of our government. Look, I will be fine. I made it out. I'm good. But I'm really worried about the next kid who looks like me, who grew up like me. I don't think they're going to, and it's really up for us and our leaders to take action on that. So I hope whoever's appointed knows what's at stake here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry. All right, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Debbie Bennett on a non-agendized item.
Good evening, Ms. Bennett. Welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure. Greetings to the mayor as well as the council members. A little bit about myself. I'm a resident here in Victorville, and wow, I have a 36-year-old son. I want to talk today about pro-life is me. Pro-life is me. A little bit about myself. The life of a survivor. What is a survivor? Survivor is not always someone who knowingly beats undeniable odds or demonstrated insurmountable feats. Sometimes it's just the heartbeat that continues to tick, the bullet that was missed, the surprise when a baby starts to cry, life. Sometimes life is not snuffed out, and we call that a miracle, a survivor. I am a survivor, not because of the things that I have accomplished. I'm proud of those things, but I had nothing to do with my birth and how God covered me in the womb, and He allowed me to be uninterrupted and delivered to my mother on February 17th. I am an abortion survivor. Because I'm an abortion survivor, I've had a chance at birth. I got to experience many things, like hearing a hurting friend, an encouraging teacher, like seeing my sister's baby bird and having tacos, like wearing a fancy coat and going to Clifton's restaurant, like mashed potatoes, meatloaf, and pudding, like going for a drive on a Christmas Eve. So much more. Wow, I'm not just speaking on my behalf. As a preschool teacher way back in the day, I didn't know when I told one of my little students, I'm gonna always protect you. And I was thinking, how can I do this when I'm like not gonna be here this long and this kid's gonna grow up? Guess what? I find myself protecting kids nowadays because I'm a pro-life advocate. So what I'm proposing, what I'm asking Victorville to do is to have an ordinance for or create a sanctuary city for Victorville. That is my desire. That's my heart's desire. Thank you so much for giving me this time. Merry Christmas, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We appreciate you. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional speakers. However, we did have some general public comments that were emailed to the clerk's office, and those were sent out by email and have been posted to the website.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, with that said, there being no further request to speak, the public comment period is now closed, and the chair brings the item back to the council. Okay, at this time, we're going to take up our first business in order, which tonight is going to be item number 18. This is the appointment of mayor. And Mr. Metzler, I'm going to ask you to briefly tee it up, and then I'll pass it off to our city clerk to preside over that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We subscribe to a council policy manual that actually has been approved by this council, and as it relates to conducting of council business, there is a section dealing with provisions in how we are to appoint the mayor, effectively resulting from the completion of election. We then are required to appoint mayor and mayor pro tem. Those proceedings actually began at the last council meeting, and we successfully were able to appoint a mayor pro tem. However, this item has been brought back as the council was unable to come to a decision at that meeting. And so with that, the city clerk effectively, when turning it over to her, has a process to follow that effectively will invite nominations and eventually take a vote to help subscribe the mayor for this city for the next 1-year term. So with that, I'll yield back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. All right, Madam Clerk, we're going to hand this to you and quickly. So, Mr. Dvornowski, our policy says that at this meeting, we give this one more bite at the apple to come to consensus, but we're not going to do 2 rounds tonight, just 1, correct?
I believe we actually do go through 2 rounds tonight, and if the second round isn't successful, then the existing mayor stays in that seat.
So is that correct? Because when I read it, it was 1 more attempt tonight.
It's 1 more attempt tonight, but 2 rounds.
2 rounds, okay.
Yes.
All right, let's do that then. All right, Madam Clerk, it's yours.
Okay, I'll read the recommendation first. That your honorable city council direct the city clerk to open nominations for the office of mayor, take nominations, announce the outcome of the vote, and declare appointment upon a majority vote of the council. At this time, nominations are in order for the office of mayor. While nominations do not require a second, any member may offer one to signal endorsement and may also vote for herself or himself. It's time to open the nomination period. Are there nominations for the office of mayor?
I have a point of clarification before we proceed.
Yes.
So, just to be clear, so there's 2 rounds. If the first one doesn't determine the second one just creates the default for the continuing mayor to be the mayor as sits now. Is that my understanding?
No, it's just 2 rounds of the same process, hoping that we can come to consensus. If we still have insufficiency of votes, then the mayor remains the mayor.
Okay. And then what is a consensus? Because that's a different term.
I'm sorry, a majority vote of the full body, so 3 votes minimum.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any nominations for the office of mayor?
I nominate Deborah Jones for mayor.
Deborah Jones has been nominated. Does she accept?
I do accept.
Yes. Are there any further nominations?
I'm going to nominate myself.
Councilmember Gomez has nominated herself. I will not ask if she's accepting, so I'll move on. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Being no further nominations, I'll call upon the members. Please specify the individual that you're voting for. Councilmember Gomez.
For Councilwoman Gomez.
Councilmember Harriman.
Deborah Jones.
Councilmember Irving.
Deborah Jones.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra.
Deborah Jones.
Mayor Jones.
Deborah Jones.
Deborah Jones receives majority nomination, therefore is appointed mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you, and thank you. Thank you.
So I have another point of clarification.
It just, you know what? Actually, go ahead.
So the term is for 1 year, and you've done 3. So this would be your 4th year, or was it? This will be your 3rd year. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes. All right. So with that said, thank you to my colleagues. I'll do my utmost to offer my best to our team and our governance team so that we can move our city forward. All right. With that, we're going to move on to our next business in order, which is public hearings, beginning with item number 1. Mr. Metzler, will you kindly introduce the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item is dealing with your general plan and more specifically an amendment to the general plan and whether or not you're familiar with its voluminous nature. By state law or prescribed in state law, cities and local agencies are required to have a planning document that's references the general plan. And effectively, that is your framework to establish how you are going to grow over a defined period of time. With that, we're required by state law as well to make sure that our general plan conforms to the evolution of state law, and therefore amendments are typically required to keep up with that. We've been involved with this process for close to 2 years, and earlier this year, you recall, as a part of this effort, but done separately, the council had actually approved its housing element, which also the State Department of HCD approved. And that component is largely focused on providing a land use framework that allows you the opportunity to meet the regional housing needs assessment numbers for affordable housing. And so we've accomplished that, and that element of itself actually becomes a part of the general plan, but separately requiring its own attention or amendments to other elements, particularly the land use element, the safety element, and because law established the need to include an environmental justice element, this effort also created that new element, which does get incorporated into the general plan amendment. And so then finally, with the general plan now before you, this does constitute a project and effectively is required to have a environmental impact report conducted along with that. So those items are brought before you tonight. They have been reviewed and approved unanimously by your planning commission at their early November meeting. So with that, this item is being brought forward for your consideration.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Mester, is there going to be a presentation on this?
And I'm sorry, yes, the author on this item is Scott Webb. He and representatives from Harris Associates are available for a presentation if you want one. And if so, we can queue that up. If not, they're both available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, council, what's your pleasure? Do you want to have a proper presentation or do our normal Q&A?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Okay. Any?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I do
So,
have questions.
okay.
Is this a public hearing, right?
It is, but my question was whether or not we're going to undertake a formal presentation. I think we're going to forego that. It sounds like we have consensus on that. So with that said, Madam Clerk, will you please read the recommendation?
That the City Council conduct a public hearing, receive testimony regarding the proposed project, and take the following action as recommended by the City of Victorville Planning Commission. Adopt resolution number 22-124, thereby certifying the approval of the final program environmental impact report with SEQA findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations and a mitigated monitoring program for the subject general plan amendment, and adopt general plan amendment case number PLAN 21-00034 to update the land use element, the safety element, and create a new environmental justice element of the general plan.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we're going to move on to technical questions for clarification as it relates specifically to the staff report, and we're going to begin with Member Gomez.
So before that, it was not clear to me, are we foregoing the hearing for members to answer questions or are we foregoing the presentation?
No, we're going to go through the normal process. It was just whether or not we were going to have a formal presentation to begin with.
All right, thank you. My first question is, would you mind elaborating on the city's findings where it says certain identified significant and unavoidable impact to air quality, cultural resources, greenhouse gases emissions, and noise contained within CEQA and statement of overriding consideration cannot be mitigated to a level of insignificance after mitigating. So what are the impacts and what is it sustaining for the housing element that is found on page 15?
Thank you. Yes, I can answer that question. Good evening, Mayor and council members. The program EIR that was prepared for this document started over a year ago, and the overall environmental analysis tried to mitigate the future growth of the city as much as possible. But as it relates to noise,
greenhouse gas emissions, also cultural resources, specifically tribal cultural resources, and air quality. The findings found that we could not fully mitigate those impacts as we grow as a city.
So what does that really mean? I don't comprehend.
Within the California Environmental Quality Act, we're required to do an environmental assessment. Most of the projects that we bring forward to the Planning Commission or act on as the city are mitigated to less than significance. In this case, though, we're talking about the city as a whole growing over the next 20 plus years. There's certain environmental impacts, though we've tried to mitigate as much as possible, are unavoidable. You see this in large scale projects that have to adopt a statement of overriding consideration. It basically is stating that the city realizes that there's going to be impacts as we grow, that's allowed by the California Environmental Quality Act. We'll do our best as projects come in to mitigate as much as possible, but based on the analysis that was done, those are the 4 environmental components that will be impacted that we couldn't find at this point that we're mitigating them to less than significance.
And what was that? You used the term cultural and you said tribal. How does that fit in this category?
So with any new project that comes forward, we route to the local tribes and they have a chance to comment. That project may require tribal monitoring. There may be artifacts that are discovered during grading.
Okay, thank you. And is the revision to the EIR to clarify and to make significant changes to CEQA, or was it just the new significant data that was included for changes for the project or the environmental settings that's found on page 23?
I'm sorry, could you restate that?
Yes, so basically if you look at page 23, it's talking about EIR, and it says it's either doing one of 2 things. It's either doing the significant changes with clarification, or it's introducing new significant data that's including changes within the project. It had both languages, so I wanted to make sure, are we doing one or the other? We can't be doing, in my opinion, both.
So we are doing both. There is a monitoring program that has mitigation measures that future projects would follow. But on the other side of that, the analysis that was done is that we couldn't fully mitigate as it relates to air impacts, greenhouse gases, cultural resources, and also the noise, just based on future growth.
Okay.
So there's a balance there, but again, this is common. I would say the majority of all cities, especially growing cities, cannot avoid impacts as they grow. We're not a built-out city. We're going to have impacts.
Okay, you addressed noise, but we have a noise level ordinance with decibels at a certain degree. How is that in the future going to be mitigated? Is the ordinance still allotted for the future, but yet what's not mitigated just kind of stays, and we kind of just deal with the noise level? Whatever noise level it has to do. I'm thinking music, but it could be construction work.
Yeah, there would still be a noise ordinance that would be followed for new development, but as growth occurs and more traffic counts occur on a street, that street noise level will increase over time.
And what other tax proposals outside funding are going to be considered to increase the fees and the taxes to taxpayers? It does talk about a proposal in the future.
So with the rising cost of public service, specifically public safety, cities in our state, due to Proposition 13 mainly, have to look at other revenue sources. So whether that's a community facilities district or different elevated transit-oriented taxes for hotels, but there's a variety of mechanisms that the city could look at to maintain level of service in the future.
So the CFDs or TOTs, what are the percentage that we can expect for revenues? for future? Do we have an idea?
That would have to be analyzed at a future date.
Okay, and what about for the sustainability of police force to mitigate with goal B? How many more bodies are we gonna have to increment for goal B to be sustained?
That would be a separate study over time.
Okay, and then this one.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Harriman, questions as it relates to the staff report?
I have no questions because I was part of this when I was sitting on the planning commission.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harriman. Member Irving,
I don't have any questions again. I don't have questions. Thank you.
thank you. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Webb, does this report address our reader numbers we're gonna have to meet? I don't know if it's 5 years or 8 years from the state.
Yeah, so mainly the land use element that's before you today implements some of the redesignation of residential property to higher densities. There's a requirement by the state to have certain areas of the city that are up to 30 units per gross acre. So this is a step to implementing that certified housing element.
Thank you very much. So very well put together. Thank you.
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, Mr. Metzler, does this amendment have to be approved at the state level?
I knew the housing element did, but general plan, once we're done here, we're done. Is that correct?
That is correct. Currently, the state only requires the housing element to be certified, but we do have to report back to the state annually. So we could be at risk of losing our certified housing element if we're not making steps like this.
Right, and I know that there's some other things at the SBCTA level, talking about a housing trust that maybe somewhere down the road that's going to help as well with numbers.
It's a concept being discussed right now.
Right.
We're actually evaluating it. That would be something intended to help satisfy all the cities that participate in them achieving some of the goals in their housing element.
If they create a JPA. Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much. So with that said, we're going to move on to the public hearing itself. The chair opens the public hearing and invites public testimony. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that said, the public hearing is closed and the chair brings the item, of course, back to the council, invites a motion from the council.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right, and just for clarification, that is to adopt resolution.
Actually, I rescind my second.
Okay, is there a
Second motion.
Thank you. All right. And that again is to adopt resolution 22-124, which naturally addresses points 1 and 2 found in that resolution. All right, discussion on the pending motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
No discussion.
Thank you. Member Irving.
Congratulations. This was quite a voluminous document, so I'll keep reading. Thank you. No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, I was a bit concerned listening to how cultural resources and things are going to be unable to futuristically be seen in terms of how we can mitigate. So I don't know how the city plans on doing that, but it seems like a difficult task, especially when we have a variation of diversification coming in Victorville, and I could see till 2045 or 2045 being a very diverse city. So let's see how we're going to work with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Harriman.
No comments.
Thank you. All right, and the chair has no comments on the pending motion and closes the discussion period. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez.
No.
Councilmember Harriman.
Yes.
Councilmember Irving.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
All right, so the council has just taken action in accordance with the recommendations set forth on the agenda. We're going to now move on to a public hearing item number 2, and this is the second reading and adoption of City Council Ordinance number 2433. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Yes, this is the second reading. We're handling it slightly different procedurally than we traditionally do with second readings of ordinances, and for the benefit of the public, an ordinance effectively establishes local law And it's something that goes through a fairly extensive public process to get to this point. But typically, the second reading is done after a first reading, and then effectively 30 days after the second reading, the ordinance becomes law. And so, in this particular case, because I think procedurally we're largely incorporating another agency's code, effectively the state code dealing with fire code. Because we're largely adopting that, we have to conduct it at a second public hearing. So that's the reason for the slight difference in how we're handling this versus how we traditionally handle the second readings of ordinance. But this item is identical to what you had discussed at the last council meeting. Every 3 years, we are required, along with our building codes, to also update our fire code. And so with that, this item does that. It brings our local code in conformance with state law, but also addresses any other laws that are more localized than state law. We've actually addressed those in this ordinance as well. So with that, the authors, this has been co-authored by your Deputy City Manager, Ms. Sophie Smith, who's not here today. So I'll field her questions the best I can. It's also co-authored with your Fire Chief, Mr. Brian Fallon. We're all available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Metzger. Madam Clerk, the recommendation.
That your honorable city council open and conduct a public hearing to receive citizen comments regarding ordinance number 2433 and the municipal code amendments included therein. Find that the action of adopting this ordinance is not a project under the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines pursuant to section 15378B5 and adopted by second reading by title only ordinance number 2433 repealing and amending various chapters and sections of Title 8 of the Victorville Municipal Code.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, with that said, we're going to move on to questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report. And of course, keeping in mind that we've already had significant discussion and deliberation on this item. All right, we're going to begin this time with Member Harriman.
No question.
Thank you. Member Irving.
Just a clarification. I know we already had a good conversation about this at the last meeting. This is just an update or bringing our municipal code, fire code in alignment with the state, correct?
That
yes. Okay, thank you. Nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Irving. Mayor Pro Tem Becerra.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Yes. What does the CFC 2022 have to do with this item and its feasibility?
What page are you on? I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referencing.
You can refer to page 1708 for that. It speaks about the CFC 2022 and feasibility, and I wasn't comprehending why that item was relevant to this particular reportage.
CFC stands for California Fire Code, so these are referencing particular sections in the California State Fire Code.
Yeah, and so it also alludes to a very voluminous pagination of content that wouldn't be able to be somehow allowed to be placed in here because of its voluminous the amount of text there is. So I wanted to understand if that is something very integral and very important. Why wasn't it part of something that could be feasible for a council member to look over or have an option as? That's why my question is referent to the CFC 2022 and its feasibility, since it's not here.
So with that, effectively what we're doing here is making as a part of our local code, the state code, and using those particular code sections as references. So that's the best I can offer as to the connection between what you're adopting here and the references to state code.
Okay, and why is the city annihilating the reserve firefighter program?
We're not annihilating, I mean, that's quite a characterization. We're actually removing that as a provision in this code because it would, by leaving it in the code, it would actually be inconsistent with the MOU that we had recently approved with the VPF.
And it takes a firefighter approximately 18 weeks. Wouldn't a reserve program be a great sequel to a career in the field?
Okay, the chair is going to call for the orders of the day. This goes beyond the scope of the agenda item itself. If
Well,
you'll kindly move on, Member Gomez.
so, if I can reframe it,
Sure.
so if we don't have a reserve program for firefighters, it seems like we don't have an opportunity for growth in the community. So I was wondering why that would just not be a part of it, even if it's not part of an MOU, or was that even a consideration in an MOU at all?
It was a consideration in our discussions with labor. That program is not the best program for us to pursue to build the workforce in our department is what we've largely accepted. In fact, there isn't really a market or an audience to actually fill those types of positions. So it's actually an impractical program to try to administer.
Okay, and you might have to be redundant on this, and it's okay. Why is a second hearing required? Isn't the first and second reading already in place of a calendar? And I don't mind if you repeat your explanation.
This is the second reading. The first reading was actually conducted at our first meeting in December, a couple of weeks ago. And so this is the second reading. Presuming the council approves this, then 30 days is required to elapse before this actually codifies in your municipal code.
So it's my understanding then that it was something not status
Your
quo.
time is up.
Standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Messer, did you understand the question?
I did not.
Okay, so just to be very clear, the second readings are typically on the consent calendar, but this one had some stipulations attached to it that caused us to have to put it on the agenda as a public hearing. All right, and the chair has no questions on this and opens the public hearing to receive public testimony. Madam Clerk, any requests?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The public hearing is now closed and chair brings the item back to the council. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of ordinance 2433?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville, repealing and amending various chapters and sections of Title 8 of the Victorville Municipal Code for the purpose of, one, adopting by reference the 2022 edition of the California Fire Code, including appendices B, B, C, D, E, F, H, and I thereof, and other local amendments. 2, reflecting certain fire department operational changes, and 3, making other clarifying revisions to the code.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair now invites a motion from the council as to points 2 and 3 on the agenda, as we've already taken up point 1.
Madam Mayor, I move that we accept items, points 2 and 3 for item 2.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a first by Member Irving, a second by Member Harriman. Discussion on the pending motion, beginning with Member Irving.
No discussion, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harriman.
Yeah, if I could just make a comment from, don't we have a scholarship program for future firefighters and possibly internships from the academy? So we do have something in place for the future fire.
We do have a scholarship in place currently.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, a reserve firefighters program could fulfill strategic plans along with the consideration of amendments to the Victorville's general plan if it were considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Becerra.
No comments.
Thank you. And the chair has no comments on the pending motion. Closes the discussion period. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Thank you. So the council has taken action to adopt staff's recommendation as to points 2 and 3 set forth on the agenda. We're now going to move on to our next business in order, which is the consent calendar, items 3 through 13. Mayor Pro Tem, I understand you
Want to abstain from item 7. My vote
Yes.
abstain from item 7.
All right. Thank you for letting us know in advance. All right.
I would like to consider inquiring on consent calendar items 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. And this is for brief comment.
Yeah, brief inquisitions of these.
Okay. And so if it, just because it's been a while since we've done this, this is comment or clarifications shall necessarily be limited in nature. If it goes beyond that, the chair is going to request that a motion be made to pull the item from the consent calendar. All right. With that said, does anybody else want to make brief comments or clarifications on consent items?
Madam Mayor, I need a clarification.
Yeah,
Mayor Pro Tem is pulling, recusing herself, or she's abstaining?
She's abstaining.
From what item?
7.
7. Okay, thank you.
and Madam Mayor, you're pulling items 3, 4, and 5 from the vote?
No. She just wishes to make comment or ask a few questions. Yes. All right. With that said, Member Gomez, let's begin with item 3.
What does nearly 40,000 connections mean in terms of customer? Is that like one connection per address? Is that what it's referring to?
I'm sorry, can you restate that question, please?
Absolutely. So nearly 37,000, I rounded up to 40 connections. Is that equivalent to one connection per address, residential and commercial?
Yeah, the connection is basically accounted for by the meter, so that's the easiest way to characterize it.
And all those meters, are they now upgraded, including with SLI?
They are upgraded. I'm sorry, which acronym did you use?
SLI. Sphere of influence.
Oh, that doesn't relate to
It's-
meters.
It's in the reporting,
we-
verbatim.
We do have the radio feeds connected to them. Mr. Matthews, maybe it'd be better if you spoke to the technology that we're using with the meters. I don't know the percentage that are upgraded if all of them, but the technology that we're using to do our automated meter reading.
Okay. And again, so the questions related to this and so forth have to be brief. Otherwise, we're going to pull it. So keeping that in mind, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, it's quick. All the meters are upgraded. They have capabilities to do AMI and AMR. So they're the latest meters.
Thank you. And for question 4,
yes,
has there been plans for development, and what has the city expected? Or these transactions fell by the wayside? Any deficits or any changes? I'm talking about the ownership, the name change, and the security for a track map.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to restate your
Yes. Have there been any plans for development? So I don't know if are you familiar with that item? I would have to contextualize and it would take too much time.
I am familiar with item number 4, if that's what you're speaking to.
Yes, I am. So my question is, has there been any plans for development? Any expectancy? Because I know the transaction, in my opinion, has fallen out.
Not that I'm aware of. This is just dealing with change investing associated with the map.
All right. And then number 5, will the city council expect to see more correlations with projects in terms of the strategic plans being proposed so explicitly? It's something new that I'm looking at the reporting.
I would say it's possible if you were more clear on what you mean by correlations.
So if this is one of the first times that I'm opening up the agenda items, and a lot of them have the strategic plan 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. So I'm asking if this is going to be more explicit from now on. It shouldn't be considered new anymore. It's expected.
Your use of explicit, I'm not sure exactly how it relates, but I can share with you what staff is intending to do as we have updated our staff report format. We're actually trying to build some consistency, but we are intending to be more consistent in our staff reports by identifying where the respective item is connecting with the city council's adopted strategic goals.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Thank you, Member Gomez. With that said, a motion is in order for the council and the council acting in its various capacities on boards of directors, etc., to approve action on consent calendar items 3 through 13 in accordance with the recommendations presented on the agenda, with the understanding that Mayor Pro Tem Becerra is abstaining on item number 7.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first by Member Irving and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Becerra. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes, no on 8 and 12.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes, abstaining on item 7.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no on items 8 and 12, and Mayor Pro Tem Becerra abstaining from item 7.
Thank you. So with that said, the council and the council acting in its various capacities has adopted the recommendations set forth on the consent calendar items through 13. Member Becerra abstaining on items number 7, and Member Gomez voted no on a couple of the items. So the item passes. All right. So moving on to our next business in order, which is written communications, beginning with item number 14. This is the Wellness Center Project, Phase 1, supplemental work orders numbers 5 and 6. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Staff, under council direction, has been moving towards the ultimate build out of a 110 unit, 170 bed non-congregate wellness and recuperative care center in the Old Town area. In large part, we've been funding with ARPA funds, along with state money that has been awarded, state grant money that has been awarded through the Home Key program. And so with that, we've been pursuing this project as it's our number one priority, as established by the Homelessness Solutions Task Force. And so with that, we've been under construction for some time. We're actually in the stage of construction where the foundations are effectively being set up so that probably in the middle or latter part of January, we can actually start installing the individual units. This item particularly is dealing with supplemental work orders, and these are effectively, I would say, akin to change orders, where it's allowing for monies to be appropriated to satisfy costs associated with certain changes relative to work. In this particular case, they're supplemental work orders to assist in offsetting costs that were realized in phase 1, which was largely underground work. And you'll recall a lot of the underground work was impacted by the discovery of groundwater at a much higher level than anticipated. So with that, the author on this item is your city engineer, Mr. Brian Gangler, who's available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
That the Honorable City Council approve supplemental work order number 5 and 6, resulting in an increase not to exceed $213,784.73 for the Wellness Center Phase 1 construction contract.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. Moving on to technical questions for clarification. We're going to begin with you, Member Gomez.
Yes. So ARPA funds left to date are approximately 1.8 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's what we've identified there in the staff report.
Okay. Is any of the funding already pre-planned for certain projects? Do we know?
I don't know that answer. Ms. Davidson, do you happen to believe if there's any plans for the use of that 1.8 unencumbered?
We do expect that we will have additional supplemental work orders based on the nature of this project, but other than that, there are no expenditures identified at this time.
Since there's anticipation of supplemental work orders, are we anticipating 50% of that 1.8 to be allotted to the Wellness Center? Or do we know, or is that just being, are we forecasting?
We don't know precisely what those would be for, other than it will be for the Wellness Center, but we can't identify at this time what part of the construction project.
So I noticed that we are pre-budgeting for ARPA funds and reneging on Measure P dollars. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, restate.
Absolutely. So ARPA funds are being used, but we had reappropriated Measure P dollars, but instead we would rather use ARPA funds.
Yeah, an approach we've taken as a part of the funding or financing for this project was to use other people's money first, is the approach that we've taken. Measure P was envisioned before fully realizing for ourselves how much ARPA funds we had and for what it could be used for. So we chose consciously to use either ARPA or home key first, thus freeing up Measure P for other city-related projects.
So this funding open up funding for other projects had we continue to maintain Measure P and not the recommended.
Had we not taken this approach in using outside funding and instead depended alternatively on Measure P, that would actually further deplete Measure P and reduce the flexibility you have in taking upon other city general funded projects.
Okay. So just a note on clarification on the welling down on this money, so to speak. So Measure P would be dwindled, but wouldn't that be the same case for ARPA funds? If we were to look at it in that principle that you just pointed out to.
It will be. In fact, the goal is to spend the other funds that are available to us through grants first before spending our own money.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Harriman, questions as to the staff report, keeping in mind that the purpose of this agenda item is to approve the supplemental work orders.
No question.
Thank you. Member Irving.
Yes, please bear with me. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just trying to follow the work and follow the change orders. So we've done phase 2. Have we completed phase 2?
No,
Okay, but we're still working on phase 1.
both phases are still under control.
Okay, and the change orders are somewhat, in terms numerically, out of sequence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And we anticipate more supplemental work orders.
We do.
Okay, are we still on schedule for, what was it, the fall or the spring of 2023?
Middle of May. Middle of May is where we're still at.
We're still shooting for the middle of May. Okay, all right, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Member Irving, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mr. Metzler, I'm reading on page 1942. 170 beds are going to be available when this is done.
That's
how
correct.
many beds do we have right now at the center and at the old George Heffer's place?
We have 92 beds. 92 beds, yes.
True. Received information, there's beds available to date, so tonight, let's just say, there's beds available.
About 20 beds available tonight.
So this should well hold our homeless population, the 170 beds.
We believe so.
Thank you, sir. No further questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, and Mr. Metzler, expecting additional work orders is nothing unusual, especially on huge projects.
There's nothing usual or typical about this project. and if it was different, had we done this type of project with the time that's allowed to us to properly design, bid, we wouldn't be dealing with these change orders effectively. And typically, when you run into change orders, it's kind of reflective of having missed something, or perhaps there was a condition out in the field unknown and discovered until you got out there. When we embarked upon this project, largely driven by the fact that we were awarded so much money with deadlines, we weren't complete in our design. And so when we took this project on, in fact, backing up, I believe when we started with the funding, we were about 70% designed. With that being said, we didn't have absolute confidence in what we were building when we actually started the building. And we actually discussed that publicly and disclosed that publicly. And that's why we came up with this phased approach, knowing that we would have to kind of do things in some type of sequence. That's also in large part why we chose to mitigate any financial risk to Measure P by shifting out Measure P and using effectively other people's money, other state and federal funds to mitigate that risk. So we don't like bringing back supplemental change orders or work orders. It's not common in a typical project unless something's really, really wrong. But in this particular case, because we were not able to do the best of investigative work and design work before we actually awarded the contract, and we knew that, we took the risk and to bring somebody on, work closely with us and try to navigate through all of the unforeseens. And of course, when discovering the unforeseens, being able to deal with it, that's how we're dealing with the unforeseens, is with these supplemental work orders.
All right, got it. And just for those that weren't around at the time, more than a year went into a concerted effort in designing so that when Home Key came around again, we would be in a better position to get that grant straight away. And that's exactly what happened, correct?
That is correct. And yeah, if you like, just revisiting a little bit of that history, when we went out for the first round, we effectively were designed conceptually. We had a site plan, we had elevations, but we didn't have anything more than that. And so we did pass on the first phase of construction because we couldn't meet their deadlines. It was overly ambitious. So we did make that conscious decision going forward, at least to start the design work, which actually got us to the 70%. We probably would have liked some more time, but by the time the second round came about, that's when we chose to take the chance and the leap and the risk associated with this project, believing it was important. We took that risk. We're gonna have a good project when we're done. It's just a little bit extra work along the way to get there.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Metzler. At this point, the chair invites a motion from the council.
Motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro
I'll
Tem.
second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. We're going to take discussion on the pending motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
No discussion.
Thank you, Member Harriman.
No discussion.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Yes. The city has already appropriated dollars through the Measure P, so the ARPA funds must be utilized for a warming shelter, is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Irving.
Comments.
Thank you, and the chair has no comments on the pending motion. Closes the discussion period. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Okay, so the council has adopted the recommendations set forth on the agenda. Moving on to item number 15, this is on-call right-of-way acquisition and appraisal services. Mr. Metzler, will you tee up the item?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We do have three public projects, one water pipeline project, one sewer realignment project, and one septic sewer project, where all three of those projects effectively have needs for right-of-way services, which is to mean we have to acquire a right-of-way to be able to actually construct those improvements. And so with that, because there's an expertise attached to right-of-way procurement outside of our own, we actually wanted to amend a contract with Dawkin, who is a firm that we've relied on for those type of services, including having worked with them in connection with right-of-way procurement for the Green Tree overpass over the railroad tracks. And so with that, this item would seek additional funds to that contract that exceed my purchasing authority and would enable the moving forward and ultimately the construction of these improvements. So with that, the author on this item is your city engineer, Mr. Brian Gangler, is available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
That the Honorable City Council approve Amendment Number 3 to the Consultant Professional Services Provider Agreement with Dawkin Engineering, on-call right-of-way acquisition and appraisal services, increasing the not-to-exceed amount to $255,027.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to technical questions for clarification as it relates directly to the staff report and further relates to amending the provider agreement. And we're going to begin this time with Member Harriman.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Member Irving.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I just want to get a clarification. So it's my understanding that we've extended the Old Town septic to sewer conversion project until sometime in 2023. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and we, I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here because my notes are sketchy. And are we near completion with that project?
We are not. That project involved, and this was a part of a larger settlement with Lahontan involving some SSOs, sanitary sewer overflow. So we were effectively required to set money aside as a part of that settlement for this program. And one of the things that we intended to do under this program is identify locations, particularly in Old Town. I think we've been expanding the location beyond Old Town because we had a hard time finding good candidates to actually convert septic users to sewer connections.
I remember that conversation. Okay, so moving beyond that, the other question is we're expanding the scope of work. And my next question is, I don't know, I'm relying on your expertise. Is the work, the expansion of the scope of work that we anticipate or that we are amending the contract, is it much more comprehensive than or more task intensive than the work that was involved in the Old Town septic to sewer conversion project? It seems to be a tad bit more costly.
As it relates to the Old Town septic project, this is just one of those types of services that really wasn't identifiable because when we started with the program, we didn't necessarily know who the individual users or properties were going to be. And so this one is more so related to having identified candidate projects, but to be able to actually make the physical connection from private property into public system. That's where the scope of work is coming in related to this item, where we need some right-of-way services to help procure that right-of-way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Irving. Mayor Pro Tem.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Yes. So revisiting Lahontan, in terms of, so this is the one of 3 projects that you alluded to earlier for the right-of-way construction improvements with Lahontan?
Correct.
Okay. And in terms of Lahontan, we've been dealing with them for quite a number of years. And so this is just a process to ensure that we're complying with whatever compliance settlements we needed to get through.
This is us fulfilling what we agreed to do as a part of that settlement.
As of what?
As a part of that settlement.
Okay. And in terms of the candidate, we talk about candidate projects and we talk about Old Town, but it seems like Old Town was not qualifiable. Why was that again?
Well, it's not so much that it was qualified as an area. However, what we didn't find was a lot of residents that were relying on septic as opposed to actual laterals to the sewer line. So with that, we just didn't have as the number of candidates we thought we would have before we actually developed the program.
So why is this pertinent to the discussion that we're having?
I'm not even sure I understand the context.
Well, the context is we're talking about Lahontan, we're talking about projects, and we're talking about looking at septic for lateral uses for sewer lines. But yet it's almost seems like we don't have the land that needs to change from one to the other. So if we don't have to fulfill that settlement, we're doing very small, minuscule parts of the settlement, and that still complies with Lahontan.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I just don't think Councilmember Gomez is grasping the concept of what it is we're actually focused on here. This is just to acquire professional services so that we can actually procure the necessary right-of-way to further these identified public improvements.
Yes, I was just getting clarification because there's a back and forth between you and another council member that I was trying to catch up on. And I am aware that this is on-call right-of-way acquisitions on appraisal services. For the 3 acquisitions, will condemnations or acquisitions of procurements affect land that is preoccupied, land owned, or has the city or any agency related to this item reached out for negotiations? When I'm thinking about right-of-way acquisition, I mean, nobody's going to give up their land for free. So an acquisition means that the government goes in and either negotiates. I mean, if there is a negotiation, I'm sure these lands are preoccupied somehow by an owner.
And approving this contract would actually enable us to start that process of working with the private property owners to actually acquire the property.
So my question was, have we already entered in negotiations, or this is the item that would allow negotiations to take place?
Again, this would allow us to proceed with the negotiations.
Okay, so we
Your time is up.
this item to go forth.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
You're welcome.
All right, so Mr. Metzler, this is just to approve an amendment to the provider agreement. So it's just as simple as that. But just one little point. This has to do with the Lowhunton VVWRA issue, if I recall correctly. And VVWRA board agreed to use those monies that for this conversion in Old Town.
Not exactly. So first of all, and we're allowing the Lowhunton conversation to cloud this
Right.
entire project. This is actually 3 projects. Only one of them have a relationship to that settlement program, that settlement agreement where there's a septic to sewer conversion program. And that would be the item on page 1967 that speaks to Old Town specific septic, the sewer project. The monies we actually retain and we manage ourselves. VVWRA is not involved.
Sure. Okay, got it. All right. With that said, the chair has no further questions and invites a motion from the council.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, a second by Member Irving. Discussion on the pending motion, Mayor Pro Tem.
No discussion, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Member Irving.
No, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not a financier or someone who is highly educated on Lowhunton and the settlements. So when I sit up here and ask questions for clarifications, it's to rationale create how I'm going to vote. So I appreciate when my opinions are taken into consideration. I am working on a doctoral degree, just so we know that I do have a level of education where I comprehend, but there's things that are not going to be comprehensible because I'm not in that train of work ethics. So I appreciate the niceties that are brought upon me so I can continue asking the right questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Harriman.
No.
Thank you, and the chair has no comments on the pending motion and closes the discussion period. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Okay, so the council has taken action to adopt the recommendation. It's presented on the agenda. Moving on to item number 16. This is the, item number 16 was pulled. Moving on to item number 17. This is the possible cancellation of a regular council meeting. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. With our next council meeting coming up and scheduled for January 3rd, in large part because City Hall closes down the week of December 26th, effectively not returning until January 3rd. There's virtually no time to actually assemble and produce an agenda for the meeting. So as we've done traditionally, this request is effectively to cancel that first meeting in January. I don't foresee any needs for that meeting from a business standpoint, and that would carry all work forward to January 17th, unless there's an identified need between us returning and the 17th to where we would have to call a special meeting, but nothing to that regard is foreseen at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
Any action is at the discretion of the City Council.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes. As a trade, if this is a tradition, and since it was spoken, is there any possibility that maybe this can be added as a policy standard for a closure? That's my question.
I'm sorry, you're going to restate that question, please.
Absolutely. Could this be something standardized rather than having an agenda item every year?
I suppose it could, and maybe that's something that we address when we do speak to our regular meetings, both in the policy manual, but I believe it's done by resolution as well. If the council, maybe the appropriate way to attend to that would be the council asking for an item to be brought back to effectively take action on that.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Harriman.
No questions.
All right, Member Irving.
None. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and the chair has none and invites a motion from the council.
Madam Mayor, motion to approve staff recommendation of cancellation of the meeting January 3rd.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second discussion on the pending motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
No discussion.
Thank you. Member Irving.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
I'm of the opinion that we were elected to serve, and that we should continue to have and host meetings despite what was just stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Harriman.
Yes.
I'm sorry, comments on the pending motion?
Oh, no comments. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And the chair has no comments on the pending motion. Closes the discussion period. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yeah, yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Okay, so the council has just voted to cancel the first meeting in January 2023. All right, we've already taken up item number 18 earlier along in the meeting, and we're now going to move on to item number 19. This is appointments to the city's committees, and this is via our local appointments list. So, Mr. Metzger, will you tee it up, and then we'll move on from there.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item is dealing with your city committees, which are actually outlined within the staff report, particularly Planning Commission, Community Services Advisory, CREA Board. And so with that, policy manual prescribes that at this meeting is the best time to conduct nomination process if the council is so prepared to do so, and even consider taking action. So with that, the author on this item is your city clerk, Jennifer Thompson. She's available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, will you kindly read the recommendation?
That the city council reaffirm the appointees to the city's committees as the term of office is coterminous with the term of office of the nominating council member, and open nominations by newly elected council members.
All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to handle this in two parts because the recommendation is in two pieces and they're sufficiently distinct. So well, let's just see where this goes. This is going to be a little different than normal, right? So we have several council members that have sitting appointees on the Planning Commission and CSAC. So members Irving, Becerra, and Gomez have 3 planning commissioners, and their seats are coterminous with these sitting council members. Does anyone want to endeavor to make a motion to reaffirm all 3 of those gentlemen to the Planning Commission? If so, the chair invites a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second discussion on the reaffirmations.
None.
Yes.
Member Gomez?
Just for understanding.
Sure.
So if we have to reaffirm the appointees every 2 years, is that just something we're doing out of the whim, or is that a policy that we're addressing?
Yeah, last year we updated our policy manual to be much more specific so that we removed any ambiguities that were there. So now it's we're presented with seats that aren't really up, but we want to take the opportunity to reaffirm them.
So so for clarity's sake, then reaffirm does not give a silent option of the opposite, which would be if a majority or consensus were to vote.
I think by nature it really does, but that would be highly unusual.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
no further
sure.
question.
All right. Any further discussion on the pending motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So, Planning Commissioners Kenneth Cook Askins Jr., Robert Kurth, and Bill Thomas have just been reaffirmed as Planning Commissioners for Victorville. So we're so very thankful. All right, then moving on from that, Mr. Harriman, normally I would call on you to take this up first, but since this is your first experience with it, I'm gonna do mine first, and hopefully that makes you more comfortable in doing your part. So, at this point, the chair wishes to, and my nominee isn't present in the audience. But my nominee for this evening is going to be current planning commissioner. She has been appointed about 13 months ago, and that's Miss Kimberly Messon. She's a 25-year resident in Victorville who's been a Victorville planning commissioner, like I just said, for 13 months. She possesses a BA in political science, has a certificate in international relations, and is working on her master's in public administration. Every ounce of Miss Messon's profession has been steeped in her resolve to serve others. She cares deeply for our residents and veterans and the quality of life here. From 2017 to early 2021, she was the Deputy District Director, then later the Director for California's 8th District Congressman. Presently, she is the District Director for the County of San Bernardino Board of Supervisors, 1st District. And in these roles, she's been responsible for the district's daily operations, including the oversight and management of staff. She is the key liaison to local organizations and elected officials. She's an active participant in community outreach and engagement. She presently serves on the Victor Valley Transit Authority, Victor Valley Economic Development Authority, San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office Community Commission, and the Mojave Water Agency Ad Hoc Technical Advisory Committee. So Ms. Messon has demonstrated utter commitment to our community and wishes to make Victorville a better place for all. She's done a stellar job thus far in serving as a planning commissioner, demonstrated her talent in making sound decisions for Victorville through collaborative efforts with her fellow commissioners. So I'm pleased to say that Ms. Messon has earned our confidence and will continue to perform quite well as a planning commissioner. So before I offer to motion to appoint Ms. Messon to our planning commissioner, I certainly will entertain any questions tied exclusively to her suitability to fulfill her duties as it relates to California Government Code 65103.
So what was that code that you stated?
Sure. California Government Code 65103. And it's just basically a brief outline of the expectations of a planning commissioner.
Yeah, and my question was going to be pertinent to that. So thank you for clarifying. So it's not to who you want to appoint, but if someone were to want to appoint someone, they have to or must have certain qualifications in order to hold that position.
The government code just specifically details out the duties of the planning commissioner.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, anyone else? All right, hearing and seeing none, it is now my privilege to move that Ms. Messon be confirmed as an appointee to the position of planning commissioner. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to take the second from Member Gomez. I heard it from Member Gomez first. Thank you. All right, and then so with that said, is there any discussion on the motion to appoint? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor, Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you and very much. Everyone, Kimberly Messon will be will continue to be a blessing to our community. All right. With that said, Mr. Harriman, did you wish to present a nominee this evening?
I do. And of course, I don't speak as eloquently as you do.
You get to
But,
be you.
I'm nominating Paul Marsh, and I had the pleasure of sitting on the planning commission with Paul. Paul sat on the commission in 2018 to 2020, I believe. And Paul's been active in the community for some time. He was on the High Desert Community Coalition, Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce, Cerebral Palsy Foundation, City of Victorville Homeless Solutions Task Force, High Desert Intervention Action Coalition, Victorville Sheriff's Community Work Group, San Bernardino County Veteran Advisory Committee, and the San Bernardino District Attorney Committee. And while sitting on the Planning Commission, Paul is a perfect fit. He cares about the community. He's lived here all his life except for his term in the service. So with that, I nominate Mr. Paul Marsh.
Okay. Does anyone have any brief questions of Mr. Harriman? All right, with that said, we have a motion by Mr. Harriman. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the pending motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
I voted no because he talked a lot of bullshit up here in the front.
Member
That was
Gomez, this is
not
out of
ethical,
order.
not good.
Clerk, will you kindly mute the mic? We're not going to tolerate that. All right, so Mr. Marsh, congratulations. We know that you did serve from 2016 to 2020 on the Planning Commission, and we look forward to your excellent work for our city. All right, with that said, we're going to move on to the Community Services Advisory Committee. There are 2 seats that are up because of the election. One for me and then one that would be in the vacant seat that Mr. Harriman is now filled. I am not prepared to present a nominee at this point, Mr. Harriman.
I'm not even.
All right, so we'll take this up perhaps in January. All right, then moving on to our Community Revitalization Investment Authority. That's the CREA board, and I believe this takes place annually. And since my seat was the only one that just recently went through the election, the question is going to be as to whether I should continue to serve on the CREA. So is there a motion?
Motion to approve Mayor Jones back to the CREA board. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, actually, I take that back. We're not clear on CREA. Do I, Mr. DeBortnowski, can I just?
Can we just reaffirm you?
Yeah, can,
What is the
this isn't reaffirmed because the seats, my seat was just went through election. Do I have to go through like the pool of nominees, open nominations and close, or can we do this by a motion?
I think you do this by motion.
Okay, that's what I was hoping for. All right, we have a first. Is there a second? Thank you. We have a first and a second discussion on the pending motion.
No discussion.
Yes.
Community Revitalization Investment Authority CREA board.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what we're doing is selecting nominees, or what did you just do? You were
Right.
selected.
Right. So this has to be looked at annually, because my seat just went through an election. The council now has before it whether or not I should remain in that seat or there's someone else for that seat. And so we do have a motion and a second, and we're taking discussion on the pending motion.
So there's no nomination process like the mayor. Right?
That's what I just asked Mr. DeBortnowski, and he thought a motion would be appropriate on this one.
So making a motion. Okay, so I'll make a counter motion or
A substitute?
substitute
Sure.
motion to add myself as someone that would take on a seat.
Thank you. All right, we have a substitute motion by Member Gomez. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. We're back to the main motion. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to point number 4, this is the Audit Committee from January 31, 2023 to file the annual comprehensive financial report. Currently sitting in those positions is yours truly and Member Irving. And again, it's typical when someone's already in a seat and they still remain to go ahead and put those people back into those seats. So if the council is so inclined, and it certainly doesn't have to be, the chair will entertain a motion to place the chair and Member Irving back into those seats.
Madam Mayor, excuse me, I have a clarification.
Yes.
For the audit committee, isn't it appropriate that the mayor pro tem sit in on the audit committee?
I think it could be anyone. I don't think.
Oh,
Because I've done it when I wasn't mayor pro tem.
I don't believe there's a requirement that it be the mayor pro tem.
I think what I would like to nominate or to offer a substitute, well, we don't have a
Well,
motion.
no, we don't. have a motion,
I'd like to move that we recommend Mayor Jones and Mayor Pro Tem to the audit committee.
yeah. All right, and the chair will second that. So
And
we
I'd
just,
like to do a substitute motion to add myself to that committee in place of either the chair or the mayor pro tem. Doesn't matter.
so, Member Gomez, I would ask you to be more specific
Im-
as to who the replacement would be since we're doing it together.
with Irving.
We have, on the floor, we have Chair Jones and Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, that's why I made a substitute.
So it'll be Mayor Pro Tem then. Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. We have a motion, a substitute motion. Is there a second on that? Hearing no second, the motion dies. We're back to the main motion. Further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
I have a point of clarification for each one of these.
Okay.
That were
Member Gomez, we don't have points of clarification because that sets precedent in the order that it's
So
heard,
I'd
but
like to
certainly you can ask a question.
So I'd like to also I'd like to seek a question. So is this a paid position, the audit committee?
No.
And none of these are?
Uh,
Or some of them are and some of the audit commission was not. The CREA is. It has a
no, it's
stipend.
not.
Okay, so far 2 of these
None
are
of
not
these are.
paid.
3,
Okay.
4, and 5 are not.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You bet. All right, moving on to point number 5. This is the Community Planning and Development Grants Subcommittee. Currently, the chair and Member Becerra sits on this. Does the council wish to reappoint as it currently exists?
Madam Mayor, I move to reappoint Mayor Jones and Mayor Pro Tem Becerra to what is it? CPD.
CPD. Oh, yes. All right, we have a first and a second
And
discussion.
I'm
on
going
the
to do another substitute motion to add myself to the CDP
Okay, in lieu of,
in place of either, it has to be one, right?
yes,
Mrs. Jones.
thank you. All right, we have a substitute motion. Is there a second? Hearing a second, the motion dies. We're back to the main motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
All right, thank you. We're now going to move on to item number 20. This is the City Council appointments to outside agencies. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. There are a number of organizations that we as the city of Victorville participate with and have stakeholder roles as board members largely, whether they're separate agencies or joint powers authorities of themselves. And so with that, similarly, there are a number of vacancies created because of the election and the new term that's existing. And so with that, similar to the last item, be appropriate at this time to consider appointment to those seats that have become vacant. To try to illustrate it easy for everybody, on page 2200, we've actually put a table there that identifies those positions that, with highlights at least need to be decided upon. So with that, the author on this item is your city clerk. She's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Okay, thank you. Member Becerra, did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, going one by one, as long as, because it's all you on all of them except for 3, where it's Mr. Metzler and Mrs. Smith.
Mhm.
Can I move that to save time and going through all this?
Well,
that
on
want to read from all the boards that you're sitting on?
no, listen, I hear you, and so I'm so glad you. Well, and this is where I'm going to have to ask Mr. DeBortnowski, because we updated our policy manual to appoint the same way on our outside agencies as we did for mayor and mayor pro tem.
That is correct, but if there's a,
but we can create a whole pool that way.
to do a motion for all, if the council so desires, I think that would be okay.
Okay. I'm happy to do that with the exception that I think that there are a few that I would like to see Mr. Harriman sit on as the alternate. I think it's good for him to get his feet wet a little.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we appoint Mr. Harriman to, I'm just going by the numbers,
Sure.
7, 8, and 11 as the alternate. So that would be for CBCTA,
So these are the ones that you're on.
and the Mountain Desert Policy Committee,
Yep.
and lastly, the Victor Valley Economic Development Authority.
Okay. Mr. Harriman, are you interested in serving as alternates on those?
I accept.
Okay.
I'd
And
like to do a substitute motion.
okay,
I'd
hold
like
on.
to include that with my first initial motion.
Yeah, okay. This is getting a little. No, I got you.
Can we do that?
So your motion essentially would be to reaffirm all of the appointments where Mayor Jones is listed.
Yes.
And on the three where
7, 8, 9, 7, 8, and
7, 8, 9.
11.
Ms. Irving,
7, 8, and 11.
you would change those to
Mr.
Bob
Harriman.
Harriman. That could be a motion.
Okay,
I
that
guess
is
the
my motion.
exception would be.
Second.
Okay. We've got a motion on the floor though. I didn't invite one yet, but Mr. Harriman, are there any others in the alternates? Would you be interested in Confire or High Desert Corridor, Joint Powers, Mojave Desert? I mean, that would put you in six alternate seats. I don't know if you're willing to go that far. Are you happy with the 3 that have just been proposed?
Give them
for you?
all to me.
I like the spirit. All right, so then, I mean, it sounds like that we're in a very, amenable to all of this. Is there a friendly amendment to include as the alternate for 3 of my seats to number 1, which is Confire, number 5, which is MDA QMD, and number 2, which is High Desert Border Joint Powers Agency. Are we good with that friendly amendment?
Yes, ma'am. As the alternate, correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. And then, so we have a first and a second.
So, and I'm doing a substitute motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I've been here 6 years, not one committee, just so it's public out there. So you start to see the dynamics here.
Is there a substitute
6
motion?
years, a new one starts to get in.
Member Gomez.
Yes. So for 1 through 14, are any of these offer pay? 1 through 14, any of them offer pay?
I think that's on the agenda and it's not paid by the city.
But it offers monetary compensation to sit in externals. Okay. So 1 through 14 offers compensation. So
No, that is not correct.
So
I
1
think there are a few that do.
So between 1 through 14, we can say that a handful of them offer compensation for sitting in those committee seats.
I don't know if it's even a handful, but it's on the agenda.
What page was that? Because I'm looking at the 2022 outside agency
She's making
appointment.
a substitute.
Oh, you got it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
thank
can you make your substitute motion?
Yes. So the substitute motion is instead of the alternate being Harriman, who's just newly appointed, and I've been here 6 years, I would take those positions, which is for 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, and 11 in his place. That's my substitute motion.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. We're back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion?
I actually did not hear the first and the second because there was talk over.
Oh, sorry. Mayor Pro Tem was the first and Member Irving was the second.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez?
No.
Councilmember Harriman?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Okay, and then just for point of clarification on point number 14 for the PFAL, that is required by their bylaws that the mayor automatically assumes that seat. So we have no need of a vote on that. We just got through a lot in nothing flat. Thank you to my colleagues.
I do have one quick question that we
Yes.
didn't address is item number 3, which is the ICH. If
Oh,
the
yes,
council wanted
my apologies, it's on my note. Okay, so the Interagency Council on Homelessness, we have Mr. Metzler sitting in the primary seat and Sophie Smith sitting in the alternate seat. Shall we just make a motion to reaffirm those?
Madam Mayor, I move that we reaffirm.
Reappoint, I should say.
Reappoint, okay.
Second.
Reappoint the city manager and the assistant city manager.
Thank you. We have a
I'm going to
first.
make a substitute motion. I think that's the job of someone who's elected, so I like to place myself as a primary, and that's my motion.
And keeping Sophie Smith as the alternate?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We have a substitute motion. Is there a second? Motion dies. Back to the main motion. Discussion on the main motion. All right. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
No.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
All right, so the council has just taken action to go through that whole list of appointments to outside agencies. And I want to thank my colleagues for making that a very easy job for me. And it sure was a time saver that way. All right, we're now going to move on to our final items on the agenda, beginning with item number 21, the city manager reports. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. First, I do have my traditional script here, but I do want to recognize and thank Chief Brian Fallon, who has served as our fire chief, but also served as our battalion chief prior to appointment to fire chief earlier this June. Brian has been a huge help to me, certainly has been able to help me develop a much greater sense of vision for the department and for the organization. And he's deeply going to be missed by me, certainly. And Lompoc is certainly getting a really good man. They're lucky to have you up there. So thank you for your time spent with us here.
Good luck, Mr. Fallon.
In addition to that, we just got notice today from the state. We just were awarded another $1.1 million of PLHA grant money. I'll follow this announcement up with better detail via memorandum to you. Also this morning, we'll also follow up next month with a little bit of a road show, if you will. This morning, we actually received our mobile command center in the sheriff's department. It's being outfitted with labels and stickers, and basically to establish it as a sheriff in the city of Victorville mobile command center. So that's replacing a much older, antiquated one that we had. And then with that, we have, because of the holidays coming up, we have our annual curbside Christmas tree disposal program. That's going to be running from January 2nd through the 13th on your normal trash day pickups. That's where your trees, put them out front. We'll pick them up for you at no additional charge. So that'll be going on soon. We do have some development activity. Superior Grocers is taking over the Victorville Galleria. Plans have been approved by all departments. Permits are pending. Permits are pending. The Dollar General on the corner of Mojave and Village Drive, interior shelving racks and coolers are being installed right now. So they're applying for their certificate of occupancy. So that should be taking place pretty soon, them opening. So with that, the only thing more I have is just wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. All right, moving on to item 22. This is discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. Member Gomez.
Yes. A motion to appropriate ARPA funds immediately for relocation of 250 non-housed and homeless members in Victorville by opening up at least 2 empty buildings that the city of Victorville owns and can open up as a refuge to society. This item is for discussion and action to be immediately placed on the next agenda.
Madam Mayor, wasn't that already brought up at
That's my motion.
last regular council meeting?
I think it may have been.
No, it was not brought up. I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, you did.
You weren't.
I didn't bring
Last
it up.
regular council meeting when
Early
when Lydia spoke. She brought it up to move funds.
I'd have to look to see what the specifics of
The
that were. I don't recall specifically the
I
agenda.
think
I would
it
have to look
was
at the minutes. It sounded like it was something similar, but again, I'm
I
not
think it was
sure.
very close.
So that's the motion that's on the table. If you guys don't want to vote on it because you have people here, I mean, that's another excuse, but it's on the table.
Member Gomez, this is not appropriate.
If I would have motioned it, I would have said, yes, you know what, I do recall, and I would have backtracked.
But sometimes we all
there's no
lose
reason
track.
not to.
So
No, I mean, there's ways of putting stuff on the agenda.
Member Gomez, we want you to be successful here. So we have a motion before us for an agenda item. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Do you have anything else, Member Gomez?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Harriman, any requests for agenda items?
Yeah, I'd like to
Oh,
move.
and you know what? And I'm going to just do this because this is your first time. So when we get to this point, we can, the council has to approve agenda items being placed. We have to be very careful to not provide too much information. Otherwise, we're creating an agenda item. So it's just enough to say what the subject would be and when, and if it's would include action and so forth. Does that make sense? You got it.
I'd like to make a motion to visit an increase in the stipend for the planning commission.
I'll second.
And Mr. Harriman, when would you like that on the agenda?
I guess it would be the second week in January
Or the second meeting? Okay. All right, well, we have a first and a second. All right, Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
So I need, so we're looking at, I'm sorry, would you mind repeating the motion?
Sure. So my understanding is to consider an increase to the stipend for the planning commissioners.
For
The second meeting, well, technically the first meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. My response is no.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
This is for discussion and possible action. correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Thank you. Mr. Harriman, did you have anything further?
That's all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Irving?
Nothing.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And so I don't know that I need to ask this. I think at this point it should be pretty standardized, but I would certainly like to see a workshop for our newly installed council on Brown Act training and training in Rosenberg's for whenever, the soonest we can do it that fits in with the staff's scheduling. It's a separate meeting.
Correct. We typically do that, and I will look at and check with the city clerk to see what your agendas are like and what your schedules are like, and we'll probably do it either
Great.
end of January, beginning of February.
Okay, and then also I would like to request at whenever the staff can do this and coordinate it with VVWRA to have a presentation from VVWRA on all of the things that are going on there to update the council.
Need a second?
Yeah, I do need a second.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yeah, hold on.
Member Gomez, we're not going to do this. We're already in.
No, you asked for a workshop. No, there was no motion. I didn't vote for the motion.
We have a first and a second to have a presentation from VVWRA. We were now.
No, for a workshop to Rosenberg or something like that.
That was, we've already.
So we don't need a motion on that?
We don't.
Okay.
Okay.
So this one is VVWRA, things happening update. Is that what you said?
Yes, and we're currently in the vote, so we're not going to have discussion. Madam Clerk, the vote, please.
Councilmember Gomez,
Well, like I said, if that's VVWRA and all
Madam
things
Clerk, can you
happening,
mute the
then
member's
yes.
mic?
Councilmember Harriman,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Becerra,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes, and unmute it so Member Gomez can vote.
I already said if it's VVWRA and all things happening to be an update is a yes.
Gotcha.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item number 23. That's our final item this evening. It's reports from council members. We're going to begin with Member Gomez.
Yes, absolutely. The reporting seems to change all the time. It's either report on what you're doing in meetings or you just say happy birthday, good Mother's Day, and this and that. So anyways, not trying to be out of line or without the scope of whoever is feeling whatever way. I just want to tell the general community that what I do for you is typically the same. I go out there and I make sure that whatever is
Member
happening
Gomez,
within
this is a report to the council, so you can talk to us and still include the
right.
audience, but it should be
Well,
speaking with
that's
us.
why contextualize it because it depends on how you feel. You want to shut me down and be prejudiced.
Member Gomez, moving on, please.
And so I'm seeking to tell the community I'm not sure if what I'm going to tell you is going to be sanctioned and I'm going to be muted. So contextualizing, saying typically what I do for the general community is I'm passionate and I go out there. I'm definitely out there with a lot of the people who don't have somewhere to stay and sleep, and I do stay a couple of hours talking with them, and I know them by name as well. I go out into the court systems with many parents, many teenagers, and I sit with them hours and days to find out what the issues are. So in other words, when there's an issue in the community, you better bet that I'm going to be right there along your side, carrying that weight, learning with you, and allowing the titleship that I have to empower you as I get empowered myself. And that's never going to change. And it hasn't changed thus far. And that's my reporting to the community.
Thank you, Member Gomez. All right, so before we move on to you, Mr. Harriman, so Member Gomez is correct in that our policy talks about these are supposed to be reports on activities and conferences and so forth. But over the course of the last year, the chair has become more flexible in this, as long as we're not going well beyond the purpose, and that we're not grandstanding, so to speak. So with that said, Mr. Harriman.
I have nothing.
Thank you, Member Irving.
Yes, I do have a few things to say. First of all, to all of my colleagues, whether you were reappointed tonight or newly appointed, I want to say congratulations. Councilman Harriman, I'm looking forward to working with you as we move the city forward. And lastly, I want to say Merry Christmas, and may you all have a prosperous new year. And if you are traveling, I am praying that the Lord grants you traveling mercy. With that, I want to say good night to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Irving. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. To my fellow council members and to the public, we all serve at the whim of the public. We are all here for you. We all do go also to the court system. We're not in jail, but we go to the court system. So we're here to help you in whatever you need. Again, we are not a part of the court system as the city of Victorville. So we're glad to be here to serve you. We're glad to answer your questions. Please start with our staff. Always start with our staff with your questions. We appreciate it. We thank you. God bless you and your family. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you guys next year.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll echo the sentiments of Member Irving. Congratulations to everybody in all of our seats. Mayor Pro Tem, I'm confident you're going to do, I think I mentioned at our last meeting, you're going to do a great job as Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Member Harriman, for being willing to step up on 6 alternate seats. God bless you. And Chief Fallon, we are in fact going to miss you. You have been quite an asset to this city, and we wish you all the success in the world. You will be missed, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very much. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff for the holidays, and hope that you are all safe and warm and blessed. And so with that said, that concludes our business for the evening. It is a matter of housekeeping. All council members, staff, and audience members will kindly vacate council chambers and City Hall within 10 minutes. That's 8:26 p.m. so that these facilities may be cleaned and secured for the evening. Members of the public are not permitted behind the dais. This meeting is adjourned.